I'm going to start back here at this lectern, but only for a few minutes, because I was saying to Maya, I come out of 20, well, close to 30 years of teaching in higher ed, and the last thing I do is stand in one place. I'm also a dancer, and so I tend to throw myself all over the place. So in a little bit, we'll be down there, okay? And so we're mic'd up. But just to give you a little bit of background, why I'm so excited to be here with you this evening. Let me tell you first just a tiny bit about myself, because it's one thing to be presenting to people saying, well, this is what I think about this subject, or this is what I've come to assume or put together. Well, my background is totally, when I think of it, in the world of not-for-profit. I grew up a blue-collar factory kid in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, an industrial city. I went to a Catholic parochial school, totally nonprofit, for 12 years. I went to a Catholic women's college, the College of New Rochelle, for another 4. My first job after college was working for a little school department in a city 1 square mile back in Rhode Island. You may have heard of it. It's Central Falls. It went into receivership and they closed all their schools recently. Okay, see the trajectory here? From there, I worked on my advanced degrees and everything, and just when I was ABD, told my parents, who were looking at me as I was the achiever and I was going to bring our family into a whole other world, that I was going to become a sister of St. Joseph. And my father immediately disowned me. I understand why now. But the thing was, I went into a not-for-profit existence all round, and was with the Sisters of St. Joseph for 17 years, was at Elms College down in Hampton County for 22 years, not-for-profit, and then became CEO of the Women's Fund. And we are called a public charity because we are a not-for-profit public foundation. So that's my whole world. So it may seem totally incongruous for me to be speaking about economic empowerment, and raising money and all of that kind of stuff, but it really does all come together, because what the work I do now and the work I did at the Elms and the life I lived as an SSJ is just what you're all doing, only with different types of additional responsibilities. We all have additional responsibilities in our lives that make our life unique. And so everything I share with you this evening is, remember, only from my life experience. I'm not some expert on this. It's what I feel I can bring to you of what I call learning the hard way lots of times. So I'm just going to refresh your memory as to what you were told we would cover tonight. We will discuss the importance of how we put ourselves out in the world. And if there's anything that I think is of primary importance, it is that phrase, how we put ourselves out in the world, and the change that needs to happen from the inside out for us to achieve the financial success we strive for. I will talk about the 2 inner glass ceilings women face, the one inside ourselves and the one we build for one another. Then together we will look at the importance of economic collaboration between women as the key to our collective success, and we will work with exercises, and that's when we'll have some fun, about how to take ourselves seriously so that others take us seriously. That's a piece I've learned through my own leadership journey, not necessarily my financial accomplishment journey, because that's pretty much nil, the finance part. So, before we start from the inside out and talk about how we present ourselves in the world, I would actually like to tell you a little story about the power that women have when they do come together. I work for an example of that power. It's called the Women's Fund of Western Massachusetts. Just by a show of hands, how many of you are really familiar with what we do, our mission, who we are? Okay, a few people. Well, we just celebrated our 15th anniversary. Now, here's the fascinating thing. Most people do not know this about this little fund in Western Massachusetts. When you think of us comparatively, we're 4 tiny little counties in this big United States. At the 1995 UN Conference on Women in Beijing, when Hillary Clinton said, "Human rights are women's rights and women's rights are human rights," 65 women from these 4 little counties were at that conference. Now that's pretty amazing. From these 4 little counties, we had a contingent of 65 women from all walks of life, including a dear friend of mine, Sister Annette McDermott, who, because I couldn't go because I was teaching, I called her up and said, "Annette, we've got to get you there." She was part of that contingent. Now those women traveled over and joined tens of thousands of women. In China's winter, it was raining, it was muddy, they slept in tents on platforms, and they stuck it out. And this is a true story. I cannot even embellish this because it's impossible. Those 65 women had gone out to see the Great Wall, and they were coming back on the bus, and talk started about how do we capture the energy here and bring it back to Western Massachusetts. Let's start a women's fund. And 3 women on that bus literally took the reins and said, "We're going to make it happen." Now, all of those women were involved, but we cite 3 women as our founders because they just wouldn't let it go. Now, here's the amazing thing. I remember this because it made top of the fold front page headlines. Women start fund for women. This is 1995. This is unheard of. Now, it's almost ironic that it's unheard of, but it was for most of the United States. Our sister funds in other parts of the world are actually older. Tiwa in Nepal has already celebrated its 30th anniversary. So it's pretty amazing when you look at the history of this. Those women came back, and I remember they raised money by having house parties. And women would say to their coworkers and their family members and their relatives and their friends, "You have got to hear about this idea." And the goal was to raise $5 million in 5 years. Now, this is for a fund for women and girls. Who thought that could ever be done? Well, in pledges and commitments and CRTs and, charitable remainder trusts and legacy planning, they hit the $5 million mark. And donations ranged from as little as $1.35 to, $1 million over time from one individual. That's the power of women linking arms and saying, by God, we don't have all the answers, but we're going to do this. Those women also turned around, and rule of thumb for a foundation most times is you do not give any of the money away until you have achieved principal and it is earning a good amount of interest, and then maybe you do 4.5 to 5%, especially if you're private. Well, these women turned around and said, we will start putting money out into the community as soon as we are earning any interest. And they did. I was one of their first grantees for a program back in 1998. So we're 15 years old. It took us 10 years to give away our first $1 million in grants to these 4 counties. When we celebrated our 10th anniversary, I made a promise to people that we would do everything we could to get our second $1 million out into these 4 counties in half the time. And we did. And this is the video that we showed at our 15th anniversary. It's only 3 minutes long, and I think it'll give you a really good picture of the power of women who come together.
333,000 women and girls in Western Massachusetts. We have touched the lives of 80,000 of them. We still have over 353,000 women and girls to connect with their goals, with their leadership talents, with their philanthropy, with one another, and with their shared visions for a better world. Our Women's Fund is the only public foundation serving all 4 counties in Western Mass.
Our Women's Fund supports 102 grantees, organizations that empower, motivate, protect from violence, build leaders, raise college and career aspirations, help overcome economic barriers, and promote change.
Through our professional development workshops, we teach our grantees to be more effective by working smarter, not harder.
Through the Women of Color Giving Circle, we've awarded scholarships to over 280 high school seniors.
Through the Ripple Effect Awards, our Women's Fund recognizes the women and girls who are immediately giving back to their communities.
Through Seeking Common Ground, our Women's Fund connected secular and faith-based organizations. $300,000 were invested in collaborative efforts to address women's economic security.
Joan's Circle of Friends is a legacy circle that builds on the passionate belief of our first donor that women's philanthropy can have a tremendous impact on our communities.
LIPI, our Leadership Institute for Political and Public Impact, gives women the tools, confidence, and connections they need to become political and professional leaders. In only 3 years, LIPI has graduated over 100 women leaders. Through participation in a global professional exchange program, women in Brazil are now exploring the LIPI curriculum.
As of today, our Women's Fund has awarded $2 million in grants. So what does this mean?
One program sees 100% high school graduation rate.
There has been an increase in financial stability among women.
An increase in girls' pursuit of science, technology, engineering, and math.
An increase in women's degree completion in higher education.
There are now domestic abuse programs or shelters in all 4 counties.
Refugee women are learning English and skills to help them succeed.
Women are more active in leading policy change and advocacy.
The Women's Fund of Western Massachusetts continues to focus on education, economic justice, and safety and freedom from violence.
So there you have it. As I was saying, I think this is a perfect example, and I'm not objective about this. I think it is a marvelous example of what can happen when women say, I've got this piece of intelligence, and I have this piece of knowledge, and I know this person, and have you thought of this? And I think we could make a difference here. That's what happens. $2 million in 15 years in these 4 counties. So if those women back in 1995 could be on a bus in China and come home and create something like this, no matter what each of you has set for your goal, you can do it. You can do it. And we have to start thinking about, all right, so if I've set a goal for myself, it might be for my mother, as she's 82 and she just told me this weekend, I'm losing my hold on my checkbook. Mind you, she does QuickBooks by longhand on her little pads, and I keep saying, you're doing a marvelous job, but let's think about how we might make it easier for you. So that's the kind of thing, from that to, I am going to start a business and I'm going to beat the Spanx lady with my idea, okay? It can be here to here, but you can do it. And it all depends, first and foremost, on what we see inside. Now, we've all heard about lean in and lean back and step up and step over and lay down and all those kinds of things. And I'm not making light of it. I do think it is a marvelous discussion that needs to be held. And as Gloria Steinem had to push us to talk about the feminist movement, well, what's her name again? Cheryl. How can I forget? You know, we need someone who's got the wherewithal and the time and the staff to get that conversation going, and that's okay. But there are things I think sometimes that we talk about that we forget about some of the other things. So how many of us know the term the glass ceiling? Oh, let's just show hands. Oh, come on. How many of us know it? All right, everybody, of course. It's a rhetorical question, and I realize that. We always talk about the glass ceiling. And very often what we're referring to are the systemic glass ceilings out here that we're well aware of, and they usually also impact men in an interesting way as well. They're the systems. But I've been talking to a lot of women in my career. When I was at the Elms, it was a women's college, and I worked with women who were on welfare, to women who were very highly acclaimed and successful professionals. And it ran the gamut. And there were things I started to see that it didn't matter where we came from. It seemed like we all had some of the same old baggage. And now I talk a lot with younger professional women who will call me and say, can I just talk to you about my life, my steps, and that kind of thing. And once again, I'm seeing and hearing some of the same things. Do you know the line from the Joy Luck Club when the mother looks at her daughter and she says, I don't know what it is. We are mothers and daughters going up the stairs and down the stairs, and yet we always seem to go in the same direction. Little change. And so that's why I have started to talk with women about what I call the other glass ceilings that sometimes we just won't talk about. The glass ceilings inside that we carry, and the glass ceilings that we set up for one another. And these are the ones that I think are pretty interesting. If we were to think about a glass ceiling that we might have inside ourselves, what might we think about? Okay, I'm not good enough, I can't do that. What else?
I don't have enough time.
Don't have enough time.
Too old.
Excuse me?
Not enough funding.
Don't have enough funding. What else? Scared.
Too old.
Too old.
I'm not worth it.
Not worth it. Any others?
Failure.
Failure, fear of failure. I won't be good enough. Go ahead.
My talents or strengths might make someone else feel uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah, that's a real good one. We get very guilty all of a sudden. We kind of flip, you know, like, how dare I be, you know, good, really good? Because what might they think? Am I bragging? Am I showing off? Am I being bossy? Am I being, you know, the B word? All that kind of stuff. There, who am I? How would I ever think about this?
I've gone to a lot of classes, so I wouldn't have been able to tell you. There are a lot of gag rules in court, so when women do become strong and say, I need safety for me and my children, I want to be safe. Not only do they get the gag rules, so does their child. And if anybody, parental alienation, it's kind of another topic, but it will be coming to the forefront because there'll be a national conference happening again in D.C. But it's serious. Women get arrested, they get punished, they even get done in. Crime.
Oh, yeah.
It is, you know, that fear, even before they know there are gag rules.
Sure. That fear, and it plays itself out exactly in many different areas. If I stand up, I'm going to be pushed down by someone. I just know it. There's the other thing that, well, if I just had a little more training, I need to learn a few more things, and, oh, maybe then I can do it. You know. Now I'm going to give you an example of when I was at Elms, and one of my offices, 22 years, you kind of move all over a little college. One of my offices was right outside the Career Development Center. Now, by that time, this was 2000, I think, and we had gone co-ed. And it was fascinating to me. Young women would come in and sit with the career development person, and I could hear everything. And she'd be sitting at the computer saying, well, what profession do you think you'd like to look at, or what career? And invariably, in one way or another, young women would say, well, I don't know what I'm really meant for yet. That's what I thought you could help me figure out. Like, what am I, where are my talents and that kind of thing? All with very good intentions, but you see how they presented themselves? And one time, and he was a doll, he was a sweetheart, but this young man came in and she says, so what would you like to explore in that? And he was sitting there and he goes, well, what have you got? And she says, well, you know, we could look at business management. Yeah, I could do that. And she said, well, there's also like finance or yeah, I could do that too. What else have you got? There was no question. Now, I'm not saying that every young man would sit there with that, but it was just so telling to me about what happens. And we could, you know, take forever to try and unravel what's behind all of that. But the bottom line is we don't have the time for that. So we've got to start saying to ourselves, so what do I do about it? Once I've named it, what do I do about it? And we're going to get into some things afterwards, because I'm going to just share with you what it's been like to be a leader and how I have to present myself and all that kind of stuff, and trying to learn how to do it. That's really hard. Okay, other glass ceiling. What's the glass ceilings that we kind of put up among ourselves for one another? I'm going to kill myself on this in a minute. Sure.
Yeah, we in general don't like it when other women are more successful than we are.
Now, okay, this is really interesting. Do we keep being told that, or is that like for real?
Thank you. I agree. That's a good question. But I see it particularly. I see it acted out with young women.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, that if somebody else is performing better than I, then it says something about me not being good enough.
Oh, okay. That's a really important distinction, because it's one thing to say, I am so mad that Spanx lady, I was doing that to my pantyhose long before she did it, you know. But she had the guts and the gumption, you know, to try it out. The rest of us, we were walking around saying we looked like we had goiters because they were too tight, you know. Now, that's one thing. But when we look at someone who's become successful or succeeded or has really made it, and we start feeling in here, oh God, I must be like nothing. You know, I'm a slug. I can't do anything. I'll never get there. You know, that kind of thing. Look what we're doing right away. One more glass ceiling that we're just building in here. We're very good at this. We're absolutely fantastic at doing this. What else do we do to one another? And I can tell you a lot, because I lived in a world of women for 17 years, and boy, do I know.
We give each other busy jobs to distract from our own goals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Say a little more about that, please.
Well, some of it I experienced in my own life. My husband gives me busy jobs. This is something I have enough to do. And so, oh, can you do this? And can you do that? And by the time my day is over, it's like, I just wanted to spend an hour on my computer to do X, Y, and Z, and my day is gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what do we say when someone says, oh, could you do this?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And even if we say no, it still somehow comes in somewhere in the day.
Yeah, because what generally happens, no, could you do it? Oh, come on. You do this so much better than me.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that type of thing.
I think also sometimes we discount one another as well. Oh, well, she had a special advantage, a special education. It's who she knew, not what she knows.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Which is a real sort of like universal that's put out. She must be there because of who she knew. I mean, think of the memes that were given about this. She slept her way to the top. The old Hollywood thing. You know, that's been put out there at us over and over and over again. Did you?
Yeah, I keep blinking because of the light. I don't want you to think I'm, but someone said the age thing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that big time. I think these young women are so smart, they can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, oh, I'm so old. It's so hard, I can do it, but it takes me 20 times longer.
Yeah. And it might, and you know what? There's sometimes wisdom in taking a stroll instead of running the race, you know, the minute mile or something like that, because you notice more. But these are things that we've got to say to one another. Okay, let me give you some quick observations that I've seen. That there is another way of using age. When you're ready, I'll make sure to put in a good word for you. We start doing to one another what we've done to ourselves. You just need a little more experience, and then we'll see what we can do with you. Among nurses, when the nursing faculty used to say to me, one of them in particular said, I'm doing my PhD dissertation on why nursing instructors eat their young. And because of how nursing instructors who had made it in the hospital. I made it, you can make it. You see, we've still got vestiges of that out in our professional worlds. I did it myself, so can you. You know, just work a little harder. We didn't have all these luxuries. We didn't have smartphones. You know, what we didn't have when we were older. All right, so, you know, Robert Klein used to say, whip me, kill me, beat me, punch me. Now is that done? You know. Or another person has said, okay, so have you got a timeline on that? Do your 10 minutes of whining or complaining, and now let's get on with things, you know. Or, I'd let her do it, but she doesn't quite do it right. You know, we've all been on committees where we're asked to set something up, and then the person comes in and redoes it. Why? Because it wasn't done her way, which is letting younger or newer people try something their way. These are all ceilings we're putting up in front of one another. When Hillary Clinton, regardless of our political persuasions, when Hillary Clinton was running, I heard other women saying, I don't want to vote for her because I don't like her voice. It's too shrill. I don't like her voice. Yeah, or don't like her hair, you know, or she's gotten a little frumpy. She's not your mother. You're not voting for her to be your mother. You know, I don't like her voice. Well, that speaks to something else. You see, these are the kinds of things we've got to name, even among ourselves, with a sense of, okay, I've got a close circle. You know, I can tell you on my staff, there are times when one of us will say something, and we are so, it's a small staff, there's only 4 of us, and one of us will say, well, that was a bit snarky. You know, or they'll say it to me, you know. Or I have learned to say when I come in, it's budget time. I am in a really bad mood. It has nothing to do with you. It's me. But see, sometimes we also don't do those kinds of things. We don't either give our expectations and put them right out there. I expect, okay, I'll give you another real example. I was running a little neighborhood center, and I had a college intern for the summer. And by the end of the summer, I was like rip-roaring full of rage about this intern. Because she would come and lay on the floor and play with the kids, you know, that kind of thing. Now, mind you, it was my first, like, ED job. Afterwards, in hindsight, what hadn't I done? Not given her my expectations. Or gotten down on the floor with her and probably learned something about that too. Yes, that's a very good point. But I hadn't been up front with her. My glass ceiling that I put in front of her was, you should know what to do. That was my expectation. You should know what to do. You're in college. You know, we've got jobs to do here in this neighborhood center. That was really unfair, and that was a glass ceiling. And I had to finally name it. So actually, when I interviewed for this job, people asked me what was perhaps one of my biggest regrets or something. And I said, when I wasn't clear with a young employee, and it was not her fault, it was mine. And what did I give her for a review? I don't even remember now. Probably not a stellar review. So again, these are all the things we have to name and then work on, not all at once. You know.
I just wanted to point to one other that I've noticed, which is isolation, not communicating, being alone in our process, and not reaching out, not knowing how to collaborate.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep. And we're really we're hard on ourselves for the most part. Consequently, we're hard on one another, even when we don't want to be. You know, we're just so hard on this person that we walk around with all the time. Now, we may think, well, what does that have to do with economic empowerment? Well, I'll tell you something. The way you treat this person and the way you present that person to the world is the way she's going to be received. So here we're going to get into some of the stuff that I like to call things the Colonel taught me. Now, I'll tell you the background of this. I am in a national initiative. There were 100 women selected from 2 from every state. Well, I'm the only one from Massachusetts now. For a national initiative called Vision 2020. It comes out of Drexel University, and it's supported by Penn Mutual. And 100 women were chosen to come up with projects and things toward the goal of achieving leadership parity by 2020 in this country. Because as you already know, across every sector, every professional sector in this country, women are no more than 22% in terms of leadership positions. That's pathetic. And I hate that word, but it is. It is pathetic. I think this is why we're in such a mess. You know, so Vision 2020 is working across the country to change that. So the first time we were brought together was 3 years ago in Philadelphia. And we were all getting to know one another, and we did our sessions, and we were all staying in the same hotel. The women, I mean, you know when you say, oh, I'm nothing. You know, I'm looking around saying, she's a big surgeon, she's a retired colonel in the Air Force, you know, she's an astronaut. Oh, great. What do you do? I live in Chicopee. You know, but that was what happened, though. After a while, we could joke about that. Oh, yeah, you're up on the moon. We'll try walking around in Chicopee and looking for the Peter Pan bus. Now, once we started talking, the Colonel was wonderful. Because we were all sitting in the lounge, it was the end of the day, had our wine, and the Colonel stands up, and she's from Texas, and she's very tall. And she said, ladies, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you about how to be a leader in a man's world, because technically it's still a man's world. All the systems are made and run by men. So I'm going to teach you, because that's my world. I became a leader in the Air Force. Now, think about it. Okay, and we're going to practice this. When we go in, let's use first a social event. When we walk into a big social gathering, how do we usually go in? What do we do? What do any of us do?
Stand to the side.
Okay.
You go in late, find the back end.
Okay, tell me what to do. I've come in, I don't really know a lot of people, so what do I do?
Look for somebody you know. I look for someone I know.
Okay, but first, what did you say? This is a big event. This is like a couple of hundred people. So we walk to the side. we look around for a familiar face, and then we kind of like, hi, Amber. Okay, it's good now. Want to go to the bar?
Yeah.
Okay, so we go and get a glass of wine. And we tend to talk with one another because it's safe. We're okay now. I'm at the event, I'm present, and I'm safe. Okay? Now, the Colonel taught us that when you come in, and the best way to come in is on a staircase so that you're above everybody. And who was the Secretary of State under Nixon? I always forget his name. Kissinger, thank you. Kissinger has been shown to do this. It was written up after we met with the Colonel. Didn't it show up in Vogue? They were talking about Hillary and Kissinger. You come in. I have my purse. You scan the room. And it has two aspects to it. You are seeing who's there, and what else is happening? They're seeing you. We tend to walk in and right away go to the side till we see somebody we know. Then we beeline for her or him, and it's like, hi, so glad to see you. Want to go to the bar? Or did you get some refreshments yet? So you scan. And then maybe you see someone you know, but you walk slowly. And you go around, Amber, it is so nice to see you. How are you? You look wonderful. Okay? And, you know, you don't go like, hi. As she said, strong handshake. It is so good. Or the double handshake if we're good friends. It's so good to see you. Now, who else is here that we know? Ah, that's important. That is called using our linking of arms. This is what the women who came back from China did. Who else do we know? So you know how hard it is when we're alone at an event? And you're thinking, I've got to go meet some people. I'm trying to start a business. I want people to know who I am and what I do. Okay? If we're at an event where we know a couple of people, this is a pact you all have to make with one another. When you see one another at events, you go up, hi, it's so good to see you, how are you? Who else is here? I don't really know anybody. You say, oh, there's somebody I want to introduce you to. And we start taking care of that for one another. You see how much easier that is to do? Oh, Joan, there's somebody I want you to meet. You know, and then you start introducing one another. Now, it could be a banker, it could be an investment person, it could be someone who knows QuickBooks, you know, and you start having this conversation. But you haven't had to put yourself there, which we are, I don't want to use the word fearful of doing. It's not. It's just that we've, for the most part, been raised through generations of not to be bold, not to insert, not to move forward without being invited, you know, that kind of thing. So we start learning how to do it for one another, and you will be amazed at how many people's cards or names you will have by the end of that social hour. Because here's the secret. Most people are afraid of having to go up to someone for one reason or another, both women and men. Most people don't like it. Now, I'm not talking about the gregarious life of the party kind of person. Most of us, just average kind of people, don't like to do that. Do you ever notice why the people who go to events all the time, if it says social hour, 6 to 6:30, dinner begins at 6:30, they'll get there at 6:25? Because nobody likes to do that all that much. But that's what you have to start doing with one another. We do that down in Hampden County, and I have to tell you, I am so thankful to one of my, we call ourselves the posse. Her name is Susan J. Kaplan. Some of you may know her. She's about 4'11", weighs maybe 90 pounds, is the kind of person that got Reebok to give her all the shoes she needed for a program. Just kept working at the secretary and then got right in to the CEO. Susan is the consummate artist in connecting people. And if you watch her at an event, even though she's only this high, you can see her weaving, bobbing and weaving, usually holding someone's hand, saying, you have to meet this person. And with younger professional women, after she introduces them a few times, and we all start doing this, okay, now go mingle. You know how to do it now, and take somebody else and help introduce her now. That makes that aspect of what we have to do in order to insert ourselves into the world so much easier. So that's one of the things. And Kissinger has been shown to come in, scan, start one way, and he will eventually work the entire crowd. Okay, now that's really professional, that's good. We don't have to do it that way. We can do it our way. We can work the whole room together, just kind of bouncing off one another. It makes it much easier, and it's much more enjoyable because you have a lot more to talk about after the event. Did you see the dress on that one?
What do you do if you know no one?
That's the one where you have to start learning. And that's why I say it's easy. If you start practicing this way, it gets easier, and that's what I had to learn how to do. Because in this position, when I would go out to events, I virtually knew no one. And it is the kind of thing of, hi, I'm Carla Oleska, I'm from the Women's Fund, and you are? You know, and it might be that you just get blown off, and the person goes, oh, hi, and keeps looking, because they're looking for someone a lot more important than you, you know, that kind of thing. For a while, I have to tell you, quite honestly, the first year I was in this position, most times I would go home at night and sob because I went into such a different world where I had to keep presenting myself. And I told you my background. And sometimes I've been at places like the Mandarin Oriental for the Glory Awards, and I'm thinking, oh my God, these women all come from such a different world than me. You know, go home, sob. Well, now I understand, you know what? We may come from all these different worlds, but we share a lot of the same stuff. You know, and if we can connect that way, we start to connect. You know, even if it's the kind of thing that you see another, say you see another woman, and she hasn't like turned her eyes because she's looking for somebody more important. You go, hi, I'm Carla, I'm from the Women's Fund, and you are? Okay, Eileen, nice to meet you. What do you think about this night? Let's go see if we can meet anybody else. You know, and now you start moving around together because inevitably somebody else is going to be there who doesn't know anyone either. And you start to be the person who's helping them. You keep your cards. You get to introduce yourself in a very short sentence. You know, when I first started in this work, and Amber understands this because, you know, we're still not totally well known. We're not like Johnson & Johnson or anything. And I'd say the Women's Fund people go, huh? You know, or they go, huh? And then they walk away. You know, and now I get, Women's Fund, what do you mean women? Women are doing fine. It's guys and boys that need all help. You know, it's a whole other conversation. But we also have to, again, those glass ceilings inside of ourselves, we can't take any of it personally, which is what we do all the time. You know, oh God, did you see, he walked away from me, he doesn't like me. You know, I had a guy walk away from me and I'm like, then I found out he's deaf in one ear. You know, but I took it personally immediately. I started taking it all in. One more glass ceiling, oh, I don't know how to network. Oh, I don't know how to be social. Mary.
How, when you're working a room, how do you stop conversing with one person when you know it's time to go to the next person?
Mm-hmm. I am very honest now because in my work that I do, sometimes someone wants to tell me all about a project that you have, and I can't, you know, just devote my time. And I will say to someone, well, this is really an interesting conversation, but I do have to go I have to make sure I say hello to John or Mary over there. And I just say it now. because again, I think part of what we try to do as women is take care of everybody and make everybody happy and make sure we're really polite. I leave things early now. You know, I was with friends and they said, "You're leaving, the program's not completely over." And I said, I have learned from other women, CEOs, and college presidents that guess what? When the time is right, you leave, because guess what? The program still goes on, with or without you. So at the standing ovation, I say, oh, I have a meeting in the Berkshires, if I'm in Hampden County. But these are things, and I'm not saying you be duplicitous. You have to matter. That's what the thing is about how you present yourself to the world. You have to matter. When I have been to my 6th event of the day, and it's going to go until 11 o'clock at night, I have learned that by 10:15, I have an appointment in the Berkshires. And I just leave. It's been lovely, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the evening. I have to go.
I've mentioned this before, the Toastmasters group. And I do think it's a good economical deal, and you can go for free as many times as you want, so that should fit the budget. And we do have one here at the co-op. It's been going over 10 years. It's not at the co-op. We go to lunch at the co-op afterwards. It's at the BCC Barrington branch. But anybody can look at the website, or TED Talks gives an idea of giving a quick talk. But they say sign on to be a Toastmaster and bring your positive energy and be willing to, like you're saying, make a pact that I'm going to support you if I'm, timing your speech, or I'm introducing you. Even if I really don't like you that much, you're going to be, respected at this meeting.
Anything that you can do to practice, and sometimes it's standing in the mirror. When I was at the college, I would have women come in to meet with me. And again, as I said, some of them could be from a $1 family and some of them could be from a $1 million family. And when they had decided that they were going to pursue their education, this broke my heart. At some point in our conversation, they would start to cry and put their eyes down. Now, how is that presenting themselves to the world? And maybe not to such an extreme, but we have to be aware when we are doing some version of that. We walk in to get a loan, and we're going into the loan officer. And when I bought my first home, I realized I was starting to fill up when I was asking for a mortgage. Why? I'm worth it. I have good credit. I had a job and all that, but it was like asking for something, which in essence is like, please approve of me, and then, the loan or the mortgage is secondary. So when we go into that loan officer's office, do we go in like, hello, how do you do? And we just sit down right away. Or are we, hello, my name's Carla Leska, and you are, oh, I see, John, Mary, you're going to become my ally. You're going to want me to succeed, and you're going to want to give me money. Now, that's not what we say, but it's what we present. That whole, excuse me? We're down in East Hampton in a big old factory building. The other thing that we do, how do we shake hands?
You got to do a firm handshake.
Oh, gosh, yeah, but we don't. We're always kind of like, oh, if it's too hard, they're going to think like I'm trying to be like a guy, or if it's, not nice and germs, this kind of stuff. Yes, but, if you're shaking hands and you keep Purell in your pocketbook, as soon as you leave, put the Purell on. But when you're going to shake a hand so that that person knows you're there and not like, hi. Unless you're with people from Somalia, and it's this. That's a handshake. So cultures. But around here, if you want someone to know you're there, and you mean business. You mean business. Yeah.
I mentioned there was a private school that I worked at that every day to say goodbye, the kids had to shake the teacher's hand. Because it was one of these, you know, safety check, my parents here, and I just thought, that's amazing, all these kids know how to shake hands.
Yeah, yeah, great practice.
What about the hug versus the handshake?
In the Women's Fund, we're just a big huggy bunch.
I'm a hugger too, but I'm always worried that.
Many people I have found, you know, now I try first. If I go like this, I know they want a handshake. If I meet them usually and they go, you know, because they know who we are, then of course, you know, you're going to give a hug. What I have tended to use sometimes, and this sounds so calculating, but it's just not. It's just reading people and letting them know, you got something here in me. So sometimes I do the double handshake. I am so happy to see you. Now, if I'm going into a loan officer, I'm not doing that, and I'm certainly not doing the hug. You know, but you've just got to read your person, you pay attention, and you calculate. Sometimes you're not always right. You know, I went like this, and one time this guy like grabbed me. Actually, it happened today. Yeah.
I'm a big believer in handshakes, and I think I surprise people sometimes, mostly men.
Yeah.
And I use it as, actually, I would call it a power tool. So when I go into a very male-dominated place like the car service area, and I've got to spend lots of money, and I want to talk about how every single penny is going to be spent in my car, I always shake that hand and talk to them and keep them, they have to really serve me. And it's taken me many, many years to figure that out. And tears at the, you know, the car parts place when they tell me it's $300, but now I feel it's great, and I get a lot of good reaction in banks or any of those places. So because I raise my kids, I really teach them that this handshake is a power tool.
Yeah, and if there's, yes, and that's one of the things that if we can also help younger women is teach them how to present them, how to do a handshake. Oh gosh,
There's
yeah.
so many people that will not look you in the eye and talk. And,
Yep.
or, you know.
And again, we have to read our cultures too. You know, when I was working with Asian students, when they would come in, they wouldn't speak to me directly, and it took us a while to get to the point. And with, I ran a program for girls, and I still remember this African-American girl saying to me, I was still Sister Carla, you get me in so much trouble. And I said, why? And she said, because when I'm here at the program, you say, look at us when we talk to you, which is how I was brought up as a sign of respect. You look at me, or you look at me when I'm talking to you. She said, and I go home and I do that, and I get smacked. You know, and I said, oh my gosh, Deshauna, I'm so sorry, honey. You just taught me. You taught me a lesson. I think we also have to know our cultures, which is a good lesson for all of us. How much do we know about other cultures? So again, as we're presenting ourselves, you heard Maya said, to the world. To the world. We have to ask ourselves, okay, is this appropriate or not? You know, I went for an interview once with an Orthodox rabbi. The whole time I sat where you were, he sat like this because he cannot look at another woman directly. And I had to do the interview with him. You know, that was his world. You know, so you make it work. You know, but sometimes if we're women and we go into the car dealership or the bank and we go like, I'd like to buy a car. You know, handshake, good strong handshake, and good direct eye contact.
I have different issues how to deal with powerful women. And I'm curious even, but particularly if you're trying to fundraise, how to approach that.
Now, when you say powerful women, what type of women do you mean? Like powerful in their position, powerful in their being?
Powerful in their ability to help you. It could be any number of ways.
Okay. First of all, I think what we've come to think about is that powerful women who have the power to help in any number of ways, financially, first of all, they know 99% of us are there to ask for their help. I'll ask them to use that power to help. I think sometimes I have always found I'm just very direct. And I've said things after we make the niceties and that, you know, well, I really am here to talk with you about deepening your financial commitment to the Women's Fund. Or I've let them know that ahead of time. You know, there are other people that I've called and they've said, no, I don't want to talk. And I've said, that's fine. I don't want you to think I'm stalking you. You know, and I've just said it. You know, but if someone has a position of power on any number of levels, I think we have to approach them directly. Because I think in that world, and all of us have power in some degree that we can share or help, you know, and think of it. Most of us don't want someone pussyfooting around. We want them, just get to it. Just tell me, what is it you're here for, or you want to talk about, or you want to ask me to do? Because 90% of the time, I'll say yes. I might not say it to the degree that you're hoping for. We asked someone for 10, she gave us 7,500. Okay. You know, that type of thing. We asked someone else to speak. She said no. All right. You know, but we didn't take up her time. And I think for all of us, time is the most precious resource we have. So the more powerful I am, the more precious my time is, because everyone wants a piece of me. You know, so I'm just direct now.
So if everybody wants a piece of you, who is it easiest to give to?
What's your passion? What's your passion?
Somebody approaches you with their passion and they're direct
And if it's not your passion, then you have to be honest and say no, which is the thing we also don't like to say. We don't like to say no. But that's the leader in you that you can say, I think it's a good idea, I think it's a great cause, I applaud you, but this is where I put my resources because this is my passion, this area. We have to be honest again. We don't like saying no, you know, and it's what we do to ourselves so often. Now we need to move around a little bit because you're going to fall asleep. So, did you bring your cards? Okay. So, I would like volunteers. This is the other thing we love to do. I would like, these are the volunteers. I'd like this half of the room to go out in the hallway, please, with your cards. This half of the room, we're going to stay in here for a minute. Oh, 3. Okay, let's take our seats. Let's do a quick feedback. How many of you exchanged 3 business cards? Really great. At least, you mean, or? Oh, at least. If you did more, that's fantastic. Okay, so you already have a jump on the exercise, the big networking event. You're going to be coming in, scanning the room, zeroing in, moving around. This is wonderful. How many of you would describe yourselves as essentially quite shy and, you know, sort of with your, okay, me too, believe it or not. I'm shy. And I'm proud. That's all we need is one good positive experience, and then you just keep going. And if someone then blows you off, you're on such a high, it doesn't matter.
She gets along with everybody.
See, you have a lot to share with one another. And if the high season is going to be starting in the Berkshires. You will have so many opportunities, and I'm assuming you're going to keep running into one another. Just think of how you will be able to network rooms, get to know who's who, get to know the people that you need to get to know. This is phenomenal. This is wonderful. And this actually brings us right back now to where we started. I hope you've gotten just some little tidbits. In our Leadership Institute, I did this, and we had a whole afternoon of talking about women as leaders. And after that, I would meet different women from the Leadership Institute, and they'd say to me, I did the Colonel. And it was great, and they'd say, and I did it. I scanned, I stood, I scanned, I chose, I moved around, you know. And they're making themselves practice because they do want to become more and more comfortable with this. But it brings us right back to where we started. And that is that power that we have to make things different. When we take ourselves seriously, when we take one another seriously, and then celebrate the power that we have linking arms. It's what the Women's Fund did. It's what the Women of Color Giving Circle of the Berkshires does in Pittsfield, one of the most powerful wisdom group. I am so in awe of those women. It's what you can all do, not you, we can all do by linking arms in different ways. There is so much going on right now, as Maya introduced us in the beginning, so much that's going on right now in terms of systems change based upon the economic power of women. And changing systems that benefit not only women, but then ultimately the systems that we have right now, as we know, don't really give men all that many kicks either. If a man wants to stay home with his child, the system says he can't either. You know, if a man would like to say, you've got the strong career, you really are great, you're much more of that outside person, go for it. Well, we've got a social system that kind of says, oh, he must be a slug or a failure, you know, those kinds of, so when we think systems change, you know, we have to remind one another. I just came from the Women in the World conference in New York City. 2 full days at the Koch Theater in Lincoln Center. Hillary gave the Friday morning address. Meryl Streep was there, Angelina Jolie, Christiane Amanpour, Barbara Walters, Charlie Rose. Tina Brown runs the whole thing. She's the editor of Newsweek, and she has the Daily Beast. She did the Women in the World Foundation. Oprah was there gushing over her heroine, you know, which was amazing. But as I was saying to Maya earlier, what was happening was women from all over this world were coming on that stage talking about what they're doing to change the systems. 2 18-year-old girls from Pakistan, changing the whole educational system of Pakistan, putting their lives on the line by going out there and meeting with village tribal elders. Because as they said, if we do not have the elders, and they're all men, behind this, education is not going to change for girls or boys. And primarily their concern is girls. Young women who are going out there teaching girls how to code. Because as they say, once we understand technology and can work with it from our life experience, the system starts to change. Vision 2020 wants to see, excuse my language, a hell of a lot more than 20% women's representation in Congress. As Susan Collins, Republican, said to, oh God, you have to forgive me, at this time of night I start losing names. She's from New York, Democrat, doesn't matter. Thank you. Star that. Kristen Gillibrand. At their bi-weekly dinner, when the mess with the budget first started, Susan leaned over to Kristen and said, you know what, Kristen, if we had been in charge, this whole thing would have been taken care of in a week. And you know what? I think she's right. Because if we ran our homes and our businesses this way, we'd be in a lot of trouble. We'd be arrested. Okay? We wouldn't let our homes go to pot like this. So these women were coming across this stage, talking about how they are going to change the systems. So what do we have right now? We have the power of money.
There is a movement starting, and whether our money is $1 or $1 million, it doesn't matter, because when you put them together, now you have 1,000,001. And think of what that can do. There is a group right now talking about gender lens investing. And I'm not talking about those of us who grew up asking, how many women do you have on your board of directors? I'm doing my proxy vote. That's only part of it. So the example that was given to me by this Joy Anderson is looking at GDP based upon infant mortality rates. Oh, now we're starting to look at things a lot differently, and they are trying to apply that in Africa. Now, some of this is beyond me. I'm not versed in it yet enough, but I'm going to meet with her. And I said to her, you know what? This is like yet the next wave. So when I look at this country, I was saying to someone, I want a sociologist to do a real study, a nonfiction study, about how in this country, the United States, women's religious teaching groups changed the whole economy of this country. Think of it. For all of the immigrant populations that came here, or Irish Catholics who came here, who were not welcomed in schools or colleges, these women taught them and put them a whole generation up a couple of rungs. And then, thank God, some of them started colleges, and the brothers and that started places like BC and Notre Dame and Villanova. And so you see what happened in terms of a systems change, a change in the economy, in the history of this country. So that was one wave. When I first heard about the Women's Funding Network, women just coming together, and I remember going back to my home, and I lived with 4 other women, and I said, I've just seen the next wave of women who are going to change the world. Unlike women religious who gave up everything and then got institutionalized and then had their own sets of problems, these women are not going to be institutionalized because they know the power of money. And so they're forming these funds, these women's funds, to give out grants. Okay, that's one thing, to give a grant. And then to say, how else might we help you? Then, in the Women's Funding Network, you had Women Moving Millions, an initiative started by the Hunt sisters, Helen and Swanee, from the Hunt, Texas oil family there. Getting women of means who have power to pony up. And instead of putting $1 million in their husband's favorite charity, to take the $1 million and put it in theirs, what they were passionate about, and to become public about it. That's another systems change, because as Helen Hunt has done research, most women were not supporting other women. And in the earliest days of really early feminism, it was men who were supporting the movement, not women. So their goal was to change that. Well, now you have this gender lens investing, which now opens it back up again. If I've got $10 or maybe 100, and some other person has $1 million, now we put that together, and we're looking at the GDP of an African country based upon its infant mortality rate. Well, we're asking very different questions about the power and the impact of money. So whether it's the Women of Color Giving Circle of the Berkshires, who has moved, I fully believe this, that wasn't us, that was them, that moved the graduation rate among children of color in the greater Pittsfield area. The first year they gave their scholarships, and these are $50 scholarships. The very first year they did it, I think they had about 6 graduates. Last year, they had close to 60. That's in 4 years' time. That's the power of changing systems without thinking my dollar isn't good enough, or my million will go someplace else, but saying, but what happens if we put it together, ask different questions, and say, who will this impact, or whom will this impact, and how? And how can we do it? The Women's Fund started, the Women of Color Giving Circle is doing this. Now you've got this gender investing, you've got the Women's Funding Movement, which is global. You've got Tiwa in Nepal, who's saying, we can change the systems. You've got the Women of the World Foundation asking these questions. So if I can leave you with anything, you've got all the goods. You've got, oops, all the goods in here. You have to take, and no, I'll include myself because I'm always working at this. Every single one of us has to take this person seriously and have a good time doing it. You know, I'm not saying walk around morose. Take this person seriously, have a good time doing it, link arms with one another, because the power that we have when we start to link arms and share our talents and share this very important person with one another, the impact that can have is untold. And so we walk in, we stand up tall, we scan, we go in for a firm handshake, we exchange our cards. Look at what you did in what, 5 minutes time? Look what you accomplished. You keep doing that and you're going to change not only your world, but you're going to change one another's. You're going to change the Berkshires and its economy, because there's such richness here. Oh my God, the creativity here is phenomenal. And what happens is that starts rippling out. That's why we call it the Ripple Effect Award. We give an award called the Ripple Effect. And we just gave an award called Standing on Her Shoulders to 16 elder women who had nobody. The oldest was 99 who got the award at this 15th. Journalists, you know, doctors, finance people, the trails that they made, well, we're walking on those trails. We're standing on their shoulders. So we have more than the goods. We've got a history. And whether you know it or not, someone else is already standing on yours. Somebody's watching you and learning from you. And it's just going to keep going out. And we will change this world. I really do sincerely believe this. We might not see the finished product in our own lifetimes, but we will change the world. And we'll change it in a way that everybody gets taken seriously and everybody matters. So thank you so much for your time tonight. Remember, oh, and if you're short or height deprived, I wear the highest heels I can possibly, not tonight, get my feet on when I go to a big event, because I'm going to be tall.
Carla, do you, can you take questions
Yeah,
for 5
absolutely,
minutes?
absolutely.
So if we have still 10 minutes until we end at 7:30, so if you have any questions, maybe just raise your hand. And we have, okay, 1, 2, and I'll pass you the, maybe just speak nice and loud, and then we don't have to deal with the mic.
I do have a question, Carl. With the follow-up with networking, I think is important is what you're doing at the event. So can you give a comment about how do you follow up and, you know, kind of prioritize who you met and how you do an appropriate follow-up?
Okay, it can be as simple as a quick email. So delightful. You've got the cards. If you've got those, you know, the scanners that you just run the cards through now and they copy them for you. I'm old-fashioned. I have a big stack of cards. You take those business cards and you do look at, who did I really connect with? And again, this is not a bad thing. You're not saying someone's good and someone's bad. You're asking yourself, what's the most important thing to me right now? Do I need to connect with someone who knows QuickBooks? This person said she did. Okay, I'm going to email her first. So delightful to meet with you. I really enjoyed our very quick conversation. Would you perhaps like to have coffee some point so we can continue what we started? We kind of got interrupted. Thanks so much. You know, other people, as you get through your stack someone else might be. It was just really great to meet you last night. Thank you. You know, I so enjoyed myself with your name and always all your information after your signature. If you can, you know that little 90-pound pipsqueak volcano that I told you about, Sue? Oh God, I think she's on her way home texting. You know, she follows up like that. She really does. I can't do that. I'm just not that organized. Sue would say, yes, if you can do it the very next day, very good. You know, that would be like your goal. You know. Yeah.
Hi, I want to ask everybody to adopt the northwest corner of Connecticut and the rest of the state. It's not that big. But we're really deprived. I don't think we have a women's fund. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I look, and we have wonderful, you know, foundations, Berkshire, Taconic, Collinsville, Torrington Foundation, but there is something empowering about a women's fund. It's like, what? Oh, I'm a woman. Oh, yeah. And I would like to just give all women in the country and the world credit because they did give birth to everybody on the planet. And I think we don't even take time to acknowledge that. So acknowledging and trying to adopt the neighbors, because we have some money and talent too in Connecticut, but we don't have the fund or the leadership.
Yeah, the closest fund you have is the Aurora Foundation. They're in Hartford, and there's another women's fund in Greenwich. And you have some closer New York funds. In Albany, there's a women's fund. Sure.
Do you have a business card with you?
Actually, I said this in the beginning. I had to order some. I exchanged one, and that was my only one. If anyone ever wants to get in touch with me, I always say, don't call me because I'm out all the time. Email. It's really simple. Carla O. How cool is that? Carla O, C-A-R-L-A-O, at Women's Fund, all one word, no apostrophe, .net. And if you just reintroduce yourself, like we met at the Women's Empowerment Series.
Any hints for remembering people's names when you're doing this kind of?
Practice.
Practice, okay.
I'm really awful. I never forget a face. And I never forget information about the person. The name, I have leaned over to my family sometimes when I'm introducing, and I did once say, what is your name? You know, now, for some reason, and I don't know if it's because I've gotten older, that, well, you know what? It's gotten easier. I'm out at events, and my board president will say, how do you know all these names? And I was like, I don't know. They're just coming. Maybe that's what it is. For a while, I would say to someone, and how's your daughter doing in college? And then I just say, you know what? I never forget a face. I can tell you about all your children. I'm terrible with names. Now I just pony up, you know, or fess up.
You have to.
Yeah, you know, and generally people are lovely, you know, about that, because more than one of us do that. Yeah.
I was just going to say one tip I had been taught is to repeat the person's name.
Oh, yes.
In the first sentence after you do.
I had a friend in the community, and she was very intelligent, and she was a chemist. And she did that trick, only she'd be like, Mary, I'm so glad I've been introduced to you. Mary, what do you do? Oh, Mary, are you from? And after a while, I'd say, Maxine, they're really figuring out what you're trying to do, you know. Then when I was in college, by the time it came to graduation, I passed someone in my class, and I said, well, Carol, have a really great life. And she stood there, and she went just like this, and she said, you want to know something? For 4 years, you have called me Carol, and my name is... And of course, this was the 70s, so I gave her some select language, and you know, why the hell didn't you tell me 4 years ago? She let me call her Carol for 4 years. So you don't want that to happen either, but you know, we have to, it's all those fine lines, but I do think if we're ourselves, if people are not happy with who we are, and we're not trying to be rude or obnoxious or overbearing, if we're trying to be kind, compassionate, concerned, involved, if people have a problem that you can't remember their name right away, you know what, that's their problem. It really is. As long as we're trying to be just good in this world.
I always tell people my name when I walk up to them because I assume they don't know
Yes. Yeah, I do that now too, and I'll just say it. It's when you do it with your staff that after a while they'll be like, yeah. But no, it helps people, and God bless name tags, you know, at the big events now, and as we're all getting a little older, we're all going, oh yeah, that kind of thing.
Jody, did you have a question? I was just going to say that everything I've read about trying to remember names, they say associated mnemonic, and that is the trick.
Uh-huh.
If you can do that.
I don't have time.
Well,
no, I'm kidding with you. I think anything that works, we do. Yes.
Carla, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
A couple of things. One, it's delightful for you to get to know our little community here in this southern part of the Berkshires, and for us to now become aware of you and holding space for all of the 4 counties, right?
Thank you.
And so we look forward to having wonderful, growing data to share with you about our success.
Great, great. And I brought you material about the fund, assuming that you don't know a lot, so just help yourselves. It doesn't commit you to anything, don't worry.
And the website is so informative. Take a tour on their website. There's all kinds of great stuff to find out. And videos and things like that.
Go to their events, they're totally inspiring.
Yeah,
that's true.
And please take the time to fill out your survey.